Hello, 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 Tom. Welcome to the show. How are you today, mate?
Very, very well. Just, I spent the morning fighting fires on YouTube, but that is the
Oh,
daily ritual of a YouTube channel manager. So it's all in my stride, all in a day's work. So nothing I can't handle. But
what
good to
is
be here. Good to be here.
what? Just quickly on that. What is a fire on YouTube? How does that? How? What? Like,
Well, it could be a client issue. It could be, something's been deleted, or there's been a big drop in numbers, or whatever it may be. Mine. So I run for my own separate business. I've got a movies channel that has 4 movies on it. We have a lot of copyright issues through no fault of our own. Just YouTube's not really set up for people to be publishing movies legally and not have to run into other people that own it. So it's a bit of a copyright mess that I have to deal with on a daily basis. Today's been a particularly troublesome one, but as I say, it's all in the day of life of a channel manager. So nothing I
mate,
can't.
before I actually get you to introduce yourself properly, I do want to dive onto that for 1 second, purely for my own, because I said to you we were talking off air, but I wanted to chat about certain things. But that movie channel, I don't fully understand how that works, but that came out, I saw that launch, and I remember it launching. Just what is it? Because you're the only one in the UK or in the world, I think, who's done it. Is that right? It was a big.
Well, I'm probably the only person sitting in a 2 foot by 2 foot office that's done it. So my competitors are actual movie studios, and then there are a couple of big, media agencies around the world that are doing it. But yeah, I don't think there's many people sitting on their own that have got a officially licensed channel full of Hollywood movies and stuff. So yeah, I'm pretty proud of it, and we've grown 100% in the last 30 days, something like that.
Wow.
So we've just crossed 10 million views, about 5 of which have come in the last 30 days in our subscriber basis. I've got a little clock here. Actually, I can show it to the people on the.
Go for it.
It's got the weather on it. So what are we at? We're at 54,000 subscribers.
Oh, wow.
And about a month ago, we were at about 26. So we've doubled our subscriber base in the last 30 days as well. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting space to be in. And yeah, just basically using all of my previous experience, skills, and contacts to put my money where my mouth is, really, and run a YouTube channel and practice what I preach, because I don't necessarily want to, be on camera talking about YouTube. Yeah. And no doubt we'll come to
which is what you're doing now.
Yeah. But for my own channel, for my own channel, I'm very, very happy to be here and on other people's shows and stuff talking about YouTube, because I'm a complete YouTube nerd and have been on YouTube pretty much every day for the last 9-10 years. So I talk about it till the cows come home, but I don't necessarily want to be in that nicknaming kind of space. And I love those guys. I know those guys well. I totally respect what they do, but I don't really have that want or drive to be that YouTube expert on YouTube, shall we say.
No, that makes sense. So let's give a bit of a backstory then, Tom, for the listeners, people watching this. We gathered that you are and obviously from the introduction, I'll give you the thing that you are the YouTube guy, you're Mr. YouTube. You're the first YouTube expert I ever come across. So there you go. You see mantle there. You're the what's the word?
Right on the top there.
You're right there at the top to the one that I go, okay, this is the guy that everyone else is measured against. Tell my listeners, tell the audience a little bit about you, your backstory, what you do, why you do it, how you got into it, because you've got quite an interesting story.
Yeah, so my story is probably the opposite of most YouTube people, where it's I started making videos in my bedroom, and then I woke up one day 6 months later and I'd had 50,000 views. And so I thought, let me give this a try. No, definitely not. So I was working at the commercial arm of the BBC in London. The first 5 years, I was working in their sales department. So I was basically selling our TV shows to the Russian equivalent of YouTube and the United Arab Emirates version of Netflix, stuff like that. So I knew the content really well. Obviously, I knew digital video pretty well, but I'd never uploaded anything to YouTube in my life. And an opportunity came up where my friend, who was running the YouTube team, and it was a tiny team back then, it was just her and a rights person. She was actually leaving to go and work for YouTube. And so there was this opportunity that came up, and I hated my job for 5 years. I hated absolutely every day of it, but I always wanted to work for the BBC, so it's pretty cool. And so this opportunity came up. I was actually looking to leave the company entirely, but yeah, this kind of junior YouTube job came up. I managed to blag to get an interview despite having no experience. And funny story, the day before the interview, this is really aging myself, but I took my old Nokia that just about had a camera on it and just kind of took a video of like my hand moving in front of the screen and uploaded that to a private channel on YouTube that I just created, just in case they tested me and said, what buttons have you got to press? Like I'd never uploaded a single video to you. All I knew about YouTube was that's where I went and watched these free kind of cat videos. So I did okay in that interview, managed to get a second interview and did pretty well in that, because I knew the content really well. I knew the different departments around the company, and they wouldn't have to train someone around that kind of stuff. So I got the job, thrown right in at the deep end, charged with basically rejuvenating the whole network of channels. Within the first month, I was tasked with launching the official Doctor Who channel. I'd never seen an episode of Doctor Who in my life. So yeah, really in at the deep end. And what I like to say really is, I spent the first couple of weeks learning the buttons. So like someone would come to me in the company and say, can we do this? And I'd say, actually, I wouldn't say anything. I'd go off and Google it, then find the answer. And then, so yeah, it was all kind of self-taught. So I learned the buttons really in the first couple of weeks. Got some training from YouTube themselves. They had a half decent education program back then, but there was no Daryl Eves back then. There was no Tim Schmoyer, Nick Nimmin. There's nowhere where you could go and get this like amazing repository of the free information that you can get now. So it was pretty much Google it, work it out, try your best. And so, yeah, pretty much in the deepest of the deep end, someone did come in above me a few months later to help out, and that really took the pressure off. But yeah, got some really good wins early on. So I was running the Top Gear channel, and we took that from 750,000 subs, which is a decent number, to about 3.5 million in my first year.
Wow.
Sorry, I just need to tell my kids to be quiet. Sorry, mate.
Go ahead.
Will you be able to edit that out?
No, but that's part of it.
Quiet. Be quiet, please.
I can edit it out.
We might have been to do some editing. Anyway, sorry, people.
Don't worry, mate. But I think I quite like it.
Such is life working from home. So yeah, got some good wins early on. Launched the Doctor Who channel. Eventually, had to do that. Yeah, so over 5 years, worked my way up from a junior to basically running a large team. I built all of the systems and processes that they still use to this day. Added millions of subscribers, billions of views, many millions in direct ad revenue, and then lots more in the kind of marketing equivalent. We were advertising new shows and live events and merchandise and all that kind of good stuff for these big BBC brands, helping to launch like new series of Blue Planet and Planet Earth 2, stuff like that. So pretty amazing stuff. Then in 2017, I made the tough decision to move just up the road in Shepherd's Bush to a company called Endemol, who are the world's largest independent production company. So they're a big formats company. So they invented MasterChef and Big Brother and Deal or No Deal and Wipeout, that kind of stuff. And they make dramas like Black Mirror, Peaky Blinders, stuff like that. And their biggest brand that I worked on was actually Mr. Bean, which was a huge brand known worldwide. And it'd been around the block. It'd been owned by a few different companies, and I think in about 8 or 9 years it had got up to about 3 million subscribers, something like that. It was doing about 25 million views a month, which is good by anyone's standard, really. But I came in, cleaned it up, came up with a new strategy for it. We did an audit, we did the keyword research, like I now do on any of my clients' channels. And we got that within a year. It was doing about 160 million views a month, 10 million subscribers. I think it's now on something like 26 million subscribers, something like just ungodly amount of views. So yeah, that's going to go on my gravestone for sure, that Mr. Bean stuff. But yeah, and then I I'd been working towards having my own personal brand and my own business even since the time I was working at the BBC. But I realized that really to fulfill that, I needed to kind of go full time on my own thing. So in 2018, I left to start my own company, which is Channel Fuel. And we are essentially a consultancy or a boutique agency which helps other media companies, thought leaders, and even just, honest to goodness YouTubers in their bedroom. We help them get more views, make more money with a bit of strategy and a bit of optimization, stuff like that. And that's where we are today, basically.
See, this is why. So the reason why I love your story is it resonated with me of when I very first found you, because I remember you did the presentation with, is it yoga with Adrian, I think?
Yeah.
It's the one that you would remember that. I remember it sticking in my brain about this thing. But I loved your story of how you are one of the top people in your space of what you do. You know how you've made YouTube work time and time again for multiple different brands. And you started by just learning as you went along. And that it is purely that you didn't, it wasn't some sort of like master guy to come down and went, here's the knowledge. It was over years. And the thing I like about what I'm noticing, as I said to you about, I've had a lot of YouTubers on now, is what I've noticed is success comes from smart planning and time. And
I think what I say to most people is, like, if you're starting a YouTube channel, expect to be uploading at least one video every week for 5 years and still have no one watching. And it's not necessarily going to take that time, but if you're not willing to have that kind of patience, then you're probably not going to succeed, or at least reach your potential. Because if you look at even the biggest YouTubers in the world, whether it's Mr. Beast or PewDiePie or whoever it may be, there's very, very few people in anywhere near that upper echelon that haven't been doing it for 7, 8, 9, 10 years. It's just simple as that. It's really the difference between most people is that just stick to itiveness, just keep going through the times when no one's watching. And the difference between most successful YouTubers and those who are not is most of them just gave up. And and I can understand that it can be soul destroying when you're putting all this effort in and you're kind of releasing to tumbleweeds. But there are certainly levers that you can pull to kind of expedite that growth. But most people, I say, there are really no shortcuts to that real big success, at least.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It sounds really silly because silly little things put things in perspective to me. My wife has just taken on an allotment, which is really the worst idea of hell for me. Like, I think it's the boringest thing in the world, but it puts something in perspective because she's planting trees and she's planting things in this allotment that, where we live, we plan to live here, we plan to stay here. Is like, okay, like 10 years, something's 5 to 10 years, and that'll bear fruit. Or that, and it was really interesting because I've spent a lot of time over the last six to 8 weeks really just immersing myself in YouTube stuff to start seeing, like, okay, if you build in search, you're not going to get this viral video, but 10 years will compound, and it's insane. So,
and I think that's a great kind of corollary, because not only will it bear fruit, but it will hopefully bear fruit every year, which is the real difference between YouTube and a lot of the other social platforms. You post something on TikTok, it does great, but then it disappears after a certain amount of time. Facebook, Instagram, once that feed's gone, there's not necessarily, that content's not really working for you anymore after that point. Whereas in YouTube, you could have a video that maybe did a couple of hundred views when you first released it, and all of a sudden, bam, 3 years later, it's on the front page of Reddit and it's done 1 million views or whatever. It's it's always there, and it might not be that explosive. It might just be that it gets 100 videos a day for the next 500 days, and before you know it, it's got 1 million views. That it's got that kind of effect. So I think that's a really great kind of parallel.
Yeah, no, and I think that's you kind of taken me on to not where I was going to go, but like, I never have a plan for this. I have a couple of questions, but it kind of goes through and flows, which is nice. You said about YouTube is different to social media. Now, as someone who I built my brand on social media, and me and you were chatting off there about this, about like what I've kind of, as I've started to look at data. So that was where everything changed for me when I started looking at data, because I'm a dyslexic guy, and the idea of looking at data freaks me out, which is obviously the worst thing if you want to do a YouTube channel. When I started looking at the data, I started to realize and started looking at the analytics of everything. I started to realize that YouTube is probably a better place, blogging, anything like that, if depending on where you want to go. What is the difference, for example, between, in your opinion, obviously a little bit there, but do you think that more people should be making their brands, their personal brand businesses and things on YouTube instead of social media? What's your thoughts on that in regards to profitable and sustainable?
I would say it depends on the niche. Obviously, I think everyone would say that, because obviously some things are more visual than others. So let's say, for example, if you're showing someone how to decorate cakes, doing that on a podcast is not going to work as well as in the visual medium of YouTube. And then even YouTube versus Facebook or Instagram, it's that long tail. It's going to live there forever and keep working for you way beyond. But I'm not one of them people that says everyone should have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
If anything, I would try and challenge people as much as possible to not have a YouTube channel until they're sure they can commit to it. Because if, like, I'm probably going off a bit on a tangent here.
Yeah, there's no tangents, mate. Go ahead.
If it's better to not have one than to have a half-assed one.
Yes, I agree.
So if you say we're going to have a YouTube channel and we're just going to repurpose our Facebook lives and our Instagram lives and our TikTok videos, we're going to download them and put them back on YouTube, and everything looks the same, it's just not going to work. You know, YouTube, the audience is smart enough, YouTube's algorithm is smart enough to know that this is not a quality video. And so I think, I don't think everyone should have a YouTube channel, but if you are going to do it, you have to do it to, like, not to a full-time level, but you have to really know what you're doing and be prepared to, as I say, at least one video for indefinitely.
Yeah.
Shall we say? But I also don't think that if you're a personal brand entrepreneur, and I'm sure I don't need to teach your audience this, but don't build your house on YouTube. Like, YouTube is just one of the arms of getting noticed to get people back to your website. Yeah, pretty much. You should have a website and an email list. And social media can be part of that. You know, the web that you cast to get people back to the home base. So yeah, I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but certainly if I had a choice of, YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, for the personal brand entrepreneur, I'd say, YouTube has got a lot of advantages, not at least because it can monetize directly, stuff like that.
So on that, just to dive a little bit deeper into this, because you're raising so many interesting things. My head bounces around the room, and I'm always like, okay, where are we going with this? Where can I? Because I've got a million questions I want to ask you, but I've got to make good. But I know when I pick the next one, it's gonna the other 999 disappear because we're gonna get to the next one. I had Nick on the show, and he was talking about this. Funny enough, obviously, Nick, and he was saying, Nick Nimmin, and he was saying that 3%, this was his statistic, 3% of channels on YouTube, roughly, only hit 10,000 subscribers, as in go over 10,000 subscribers. And that shocked me. There's a couple of statistics he'd said, like about how the average amount of videos to reach 1 million subscribers and all this stuff that blew my mind. But that one really shook me, because, and it was want to kind of dive in a bit on your kind of, because you're very much analytical in the way this is the back end, and you've got a track record of growing channels. Why would, in your advice, in your opinion, why would that be the case? What are some of the best practices that people that are potentially not doing, the mistakes they are making that are not growing that channel past, say, 10,000?
Yeah.
What would be some of those key, like, fails? Not in an awful way, because obviously we don't offend, but like the thing where if you're looking for real growth, I know a couple of them now because I've been speaking to experts like yourself, and I've gone, oh my God, why the hell did I make 300 videos like that when I should have been making like that?
Well, first of all, what I would say is making those 300 bad videos is the best way to learn how to make the next 300 good videos. So like that, again, like any of the biggest YouTubers, go to their YouTube channel, sort their videos by like oldest to newest, and you'll see how bad those videos are. I don't think anyone's immune to that unless you're like, Will Smith and you start a YouTube channel and you've got
I have to be a Hollywood movie star.
Yeah, exactly. Jack Black or whatever. But I'd say, the number one reason that those people never make it is because they give up, they abandon, they get disheartened by the lack of, most people believe like, I'm going to start a YouTube channel and they will come. That's without doubt, that's going to be the number one reason. And I'm actually surprised that many that percentage makes it to 3%, because most people probably make 1 or 2 videos and give up.
Yeah.
Secondly, and this is maybe a bit controversial, but most people are making videos that they want to make, rather than these are things that people have put their hand up and said, this is what I need to know about. This is the problem that I've got. Can you solve it? It's like, oh yeah, I want to do vlogs because I think people are interested in behind the scenes, or I want to talk about personal brands, but I also really love My Little Pony, so I want to also do some My Little Pony videos, or I love movies, so we do some movie reviews. It doesn't work like that. It really doesn't. It's the same as if you had a website. You just you choose one subject and you stick to it, and that's how you become an authority in Google's eyes. Same with YouTube. You pick a single subject, niche, whatever you want to call it, market, and you stick to that and that only, and that's how you become the authority in that site. That can be tough if you don't really know what you're doing to start off with. So there are a lot of channels that might do 5 different things and they'll see what sticks, and then they'll correctly niche down to what works the best. So let's say your YouTube channel, you might actually realize eventually it's people really, really want to know about how to act on camera, and that might become what your channel evolves into. But at least at the start, all of your videos are in that kind of universe of personal branding. So yeah, I think a massive mistake is people make videos without any insight into what people actually want to see. And then on top of that, then there may be people that know exactly what people want to see, but the videos just suck. They're not great on camera. They're not engaging. They've not thought about the script. They've not planned it. It doesn't look well. It doesn't look good. It's not edited well. It doesn't sound good. And I think we should probably come back to that as a separate topic.
Yeah. Anyway, definitely.
And then there's people that make great videos, but they're not optimized for the platform. So they don't have great thumbnails, titles that are clickable and shareable. They're not putting keywords in their titles, tags, descriptions. They're not optimizing for an onward journey where you get people to watch 5, 6 of your videos. They're not having strong calls to action to watch more videos. And I think that's probably my area of expertise, is coming in and saying, yeah, your content's great, but you're not doing YouTube any favors by helping people to discover this, and you're not doing your audience any favors by telling them to go and follow you on Instagram. Yeah, because one, does that really help your business? And 2, why does YouTube want you to send people Instagram? They don't.
I love that.
Yeah, so I think that's it's that optimization piece that a lot of people struggle with, and maybe I place a little bit too much emphasis on it because that's just my background. Like, I'm not really I studied film and broadcast production, but I'm not really a creative type in that sense. So I'll probably come at it with a little bit more of a clinical, scientific, data led view, but that's that's had generated a lot of success for the channels that I've worked on. What I will say about that kind of optimization piece is it really is like a force multiplier of how good your content is. Yeah. So you can optimize an average video and it will still do all right. You can optimize a really, really bad video till the cows come home, but if it's no good, eventually YouTube will realize it and it will stop sending it traffic. Yeah. If you've got great content and it's optimized to the hilt, then you're cooking with gas. Then that's really like fuel for the fire. And I think when you hit that point, that's when you can really just explode.
one thing that you said so many things that again, you're just, because I'm nerding out on this stuff recently. So all of these things that are going on. The one thing I love that you've just said right at the beginning, go through, and obviously we'll pick up the editing thing because I think that's very important. But you said about you said you want to bring that in, but the biggest mistake, and I talk to people about this all the time, and this is, you say about the 300 videos I uploaded to my channel, because I never really cared about YouTube because I was a podcaster. But when I looked back at it and I have an understanding about creating and understood about, going incognito mode, checking the searches, seeing what people are looking for, all that type of stuff, and then back prepping the video and change the whole concept of the way I would approach my podcast, because a podcast could be video first and audio second. If you look at it that way, people making the biggest mistake is, as you're so right, is people making content that they think people want. And a great example of this is, all you'd have to do, my podcast ended up having about 250 episodes last year. Pretty much did the stuff that I was speaking about in that podcast was so no one would ever search that. Now, it made sense if you were this is the problem I think with podcasting, is that it makes sense if you're a daily listener and I bought into you and it's lifestyle. But from an individual piece, authority was not being some of the stuff, and I said when I had Nick on the show, he was like, well, why are you talking about video marketing when you're personal branding? And that's where you guys, so I want to chat to kind of reinforce, you said about the authority, the being too analytical. I don't think from what I mean, picking up from people, yes, the creative is important, but I think being analytical is more important than anything when it comes to YouTube. And I also think that anyone who's listened to this, who's podcasters, it's only going to go that way with podcasting. YouTube is paving the way is a shining example of where podcasts will go when someone eventually is smart enough. And I think if you're not optimizing your podcasts, and I'm saying this as a podcaster to other people as well, in the same way you would do it, I think it's just best practices. I think you're going to be leaving so much rubbish on the stuff on the cutting room floor. And
I co-host one podcast, and I've got my own other podcast, which I've now put on hiatus indefinitely. But I approach it in exactly the same way, is what people are searching for. I wasn't looking for what people were searching for on iTunes, because, as you say, that data is not easily available.
Yeah.
But, when I think of podcast discovery, okay, well, they might find it by Google. So I would do Google keyword research. What are people searching on YouTube for, and who can I find that is an expert in that, or what can I talk about that is kind of an authority on that subject? And so, I recently, so I had an agency that wrote up my show notes for me, and I say show notes because I didn't want show notes in the traditional sense. So what I would do is record a podcast and then say, I want you to write a fully fledged SEO optimized article instead of doing the show notes. So if I had you on to talk about personal branding, I would have already had the keyword research that said people are searching for like YouTube video branding or YouTube personal marketing or whatever it was, and they'd write a 1,500 word article about that. And it's funny, actually, the agency just published a case study about my podcast, because they got me to #1 on Google for like YouTube channel audits or something like that through the podcast that I did on that. And so, again, what is essentially a creative process of doing an interview or a podcast, but dictated to by what the audience want, what's trending, what is being searched for, basically.
It's also smart work, isn't it? One of my clients did this, and this is from spending time with people like you and talking to people like you and understanding this stuff. Is one of my clients is an ultra runner. He runs 100 marathon, and he's an ultra running coach. And his podcast was the ultra running podcast, and it does well. But after spending time with people like yourself, the discovery of podcasts is very difficult, but people are finding them on YouTube and then moving across. And so now when he brings a guest on, he's done all his keyword research from YouTube, so he can clip that episode into individual episodes. And he literally does the keyword phrases that are exactly what. So instead of having a conversation like what we are doing potentially, and even though I've got my keywords here, I know what certain things we're going to go down. But he literally he had ultra running for barefoot. He knew this guy does ultra running in barefoot. So one of his questions was exactly the keyword that people were searching. What's it like? What 3 tips you've got for ultra running in barefoot?
Yeah.
I did it, and then clip, bang, clip. But it's smart planning, can make your podcast blow up in a YouTube sense. And I think people aren't looking at that because that is not a fly flying around here. That's not attractive, and it's not what people think. Well, I'm a YouTuber, so I want to make videos. But actually,
I think if you're a YouTuber, if you do challenge videos and vlogs and whatever, and it does become more about entertainment and the cult of personality. Like, people just buy into Logan Paul,
yes,
or whoever it may be.
like the main one.
I'm such an old man. I don't know who the kids are down with nowadays. But that, to me, that's almost like an entirely different world. So if someone comes to me with a channel like that, I just say, I think I can help them a bit, but this is not really, like, there's really no shortcut for that kind of stuff. It's like you are just fighting it out against everyone else that wants to be that next YouTuber. But if you come to me and say, I'm the world's biggest expert on cybersecurity, I can help you, because I know there are people searching for stuff around that. I know how to find out what videos you should make and how to optimize those videos. So I think, being that YouTuber is very different from using YouTube to grow your brand and find people for your business and your services and stuff.
So do you think on that, this is a question that's been playing in my mind the more I start diving into this, and be interested to hear your take. All the time, you'll probably get this all the time. Everyone keeps going to me, YouTube is oversaturated. YouTube is established now. No one's going to be, I hear this all the time. It's the excuse I hear when everyone says, you should do it on YouTube. Like, oh no, but it's oversaturated. There's millions, there's 50 million channels. There's this, there's that, there's other. What I found, and I was guilty of that, especially when I first saw you. I was very guilty of that. When I very first shoot about a year ago, I was like, yeah, but YouTube's hard, and there's only 20 million podcasts, and 2 million podcasts, and there's 50. The odds, it makes more sense. What I've started to discover, my opinion and take on it, it'd be interesting to hear your side. Which is what you're saying about that Logan Paul type. YouTube is massively established and probably oversaturated for that type of content. So for gamers, for makeup artists, for lifestyle vloggers, hugely oversaturated. It'd be like talking about TikTok and dancers.
Yeah.
But when I look at people, we're saying about Daryl Eves, Nick Nimmin, you're talking about these YouTube coaches, people in your field who are like visual on YouTube. None of them are over 1 million subscribers yet, really. Not really. Daryl's, I think, is about 600,000. Nick's about nearly 800. None of them are really at that mega level. And when I start that, and that's these guys, let alone, that's what I was saying this to Nick when he was on the show. Then we start to go down cybersecurity. You'd be lucky if most of them are hitting 100,000. So it's not even started, let alone.
Yeah, I suppose as well that and this is a really interesting conversation, because we can talk about why I don't have a YouTube channel about YouTube. But
we're going to go to that, but definitely, yeah.
You don't need 1 million. Now, let's say you sell luxury yachts. You don't need 1 million subscribers. You might get 25 views on a video, but if someone comes and buys a $20 million yacht from you because they saw that,
that's it.
If you got 1 million subscribers or not. And so I think it is right. It is oversaturated in a lot of places, but there is stuff that you can do before you even get started to work out whether it's worth your time or not. Yeah. It's very easy to do competitor research. There's a lot of public data available, not just on YouTube, but you can use free tools on websites like Social Blade. Tools like vidIQ and TubeBuddy have a lot of built-in competitor analysis tools around your niche. There's a good one called Video Amigo that's got some free competitor analysis tools. So yeah, you may look at the data and say, you know what, this is going to be really hard. It is really saturated. So if I'm going to do it, I've got to expect to work even harder, even longer, and make an even better product than what's out there. Or you can say, yeah, it is oversaturated, so I'm going to go and start a podcast instead, because I think there is a space for the YouTube podcast.
Yeah, there definitely is. Oh my gosh, there is.
Yeah, because there's not a great.
I can't find a great YouTube podcast as a podcasting person who consumes content through podcasts. There's a couple out there, but I've yet to find one that's made me go, oh my God, I'm hooked and I need to
Well, mine
learn.
was pretty decent. It's on
Oh,
hiatus.
yours was good, but you're on hiatus
Yeah,
forever.
check out the Pro Channel Manager podcast. It's pretty cool.
Like
But
no
yeah,
really established ones. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like so when you jump on and go Pat Flynn, I'm like, you know, with Pat Flynn, you can consume like 900 episodes of the bloody
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Like, there's nothing like that where I'm like,
yeah. But then what also I would say is, yeah, so it might be oversaturated, but also, you know, again, the best time to have started a YouTube channel, same as anything, a podcast, a website, was 10 years ago. The next best time is today, because each day that you wait is going to get more and more saturated. But yeah, what you can do is look at that competition and say, okay, in this area, you know, this is kind of like my market cap, because this is how many people are searching around cybersecurity. So at least then you've got an expectation of the levels of success that you can achieve. So you may know, I'm never going to get 1 million subscribers. So if I need 1 million subscribers for this to work, then I won't do it. But if I don't, then fine. At least I know, you know, I know that 300 views on a video will be good, because there's only 200 people searching it for every month. So, you know, I'm, you know, monopolizing that market. But on the other side, you can look and say, so for me, for example, if I wanted to enter that realm of the YouTube expert on YouTube, and I did for a little while, you know, many, many years ago, and, you know, you see that Daryl's already got that amount of subscribers, and you see that Nick's already got that amount of subscribers, and Brian, and everyone else who, you know,
there's millions of them. I know.
Blake,
Yeah,
whoever it may be, and I know them all, and I love them all dearly. It's like, one, have I got the time to put in that they are currently or are able to put into it? For me, it was no. Do I have the want to be that guy and the drive to be that guy on YouTube? For me, it was a no. And then most importantly for me, as someone who's got a different background to those guys, was my perfect client is not a beginner on YouTube. Right? My perfect client is the head of video for an animation company, or the head of digital, and they're not hanging out on YouTube. They're hanging out on LinkedIn, or they're searching on Google for their problems. And so for me to have monetized an audience like that Nick Nimmin has and Daryl Eves has, you have to have so much scale to sell a lot of $9 ebooks or whatever it may be.
Yeah, you're
right.
right.
I've never had the drive to do that. Whereas instead, I can go and speak on a stage or give a talk or do some cold outreach on LinkedIn, and I can find a kind of high ticket client that is much more suited to me for much less work. So ultimately, that's why I'm not a YouTube expert on YouTube, because my ideal client is not a YouTuber, and certainly not a beginning YouTuber. So that's another thing that you need to think about is, are my people, is my target audience looking for solutions on YouTube? They may be, they may not be. So that's one thing that you really need to think about before you jumped in and started a YouTube channel for your insert niche here kind of thing.
That's really valuable, actually, because if you, like you say, if you have your experience and your history shows that you can put YouTube channels that have performed well because of their brand, and you can literally throw fuel on it and make it go bang. Like, and because like, if you look at those things, Top Gear, all these brands that you said you've worked with are all household names, all of them, which we all naturally you're going to have a natural inbuilt fan base. So this is where you talk about your analytics and data, of you being able to understand how that data and analytics works to get it in front of the right people. That's an entirely different. I wouldn't even put you, Nick, and Darryl in the same thing. You're you're very right. It's actually a completely different thing, and that's really, really interesting for you to have said, because that's where most people, when building their own personal brand, get it very wrong, is that not knowing who they're actually speaking to.
And it took me a long time to work that out, and a lot of wasted time and a lot of wasted effort. I probably spent my first year of working for myself totally wasting my time. At least the first 6 months. I tried to be that I was going to start this membership site, and I did 30 videos on YouTube in 30 days, and it was a complete waste of time.
But I did 300 episodes of a podcast, and it's a waste of time. Don't worry about that.
But yeah, it's all part of the journey. But yeah, I would definitely look at like, where are my people? So if we go back to that luxury yacht salesman, are people looking for luxury yachts on YouTube? They might be. And are the people that are looking for luxury yachts on YouTube in the market to buy, or are they in the market to look at yacht porn? You know, and I don't mean porn on a yacht. I mean just beautiful.
I know what you mean. Two very different things.
Yeah, and so like, where are your audience? If they're on YouTube, yeah, you should definitely have a YouTube channel. But if they're better targeted with Google ads or Facebook ads or an advert in Yacht Owners magazine or Cigar Aficionado magazine,
it's quite
or
interesting
on BBC News Worldwide or CNBC, then that's where you need to go. Yeah.
So it's quite interesting because you are talking about this has been something that's been popping up. I was literally walking the dog with my wife yesterday, and I said about this because I was a big advocate of TikTok. I was an early adopter of TikTok, and I grew quite a big following on TikTok. And I've had clients who've grown quite very large followings on TikTok. As TikTok is unfolding and unraveling over the last year, 2 years, we're nearly 2 years old now, and I'm still the jury's out now as to whether or not I still think it was definitely not the right place for me to have build a brand, because, and even I'm noticing this as the data starts to come in, we were saying about knowing where your clients are. Actually, for you, it is LinkedIn. It would make complete sense. LinkedIn is where the decision makers for your type of people are going to be. The issue that we're now getting with clients who built their brands on TikTok is the client quality is not as high for the thing they're selling, because actually it's the wrong people. And just because Gary Vee has said on his things all the time, TikTok's the next big thing and you need to be there, because if you're not there, then you're a loser. Literally like Clubhouse. If you're not in Clubhouse, you don't even exist. And the truth is, actually, like TikTok, I've uninstalled the app. Clubhouse, I've removed the app. There's no point in going, because they just take time away from where your audience is. For you say about the same the thing, I know for me it's LinkedIn, podcasting, and I do know it's YouTube, but I know I understood that my dyslexic mind has kept me away from doing the things that you need to do in order to be successful. It's funny that after chatting to Nick on the show, the last 3 videos have all ranked. What a shock. Because, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, actually, it's not as difficult as people think. It is hard, but it's not as difficult as people think to get, but you can make the right content. You come in and trying to hammer a nail in with a spanner is the wrong thing to do. But it is interesting that you highlighted that. So, don't want to take too much of your time here, Tom.
As long as you want, as long as you need.
Mate, brilliant. I keep you for hours. So a couple of things that you wanted to talk. You were talking about editing. You said you wanted to bring that back in. So you said about talking about editing and stuff. Obviously, it's not one of the questions I had, but I actually want to know, because you want obviously how important is editing, quality of video, all of that stuff when it comes to YouTube. Because I remember you saying at Alex's event about repurposing a live, or just chucking a live more. Yeah. The floor is yours, mate.
Yeah. So I think that the beautiful thing about YouTube and the general wisdom is that it's so accessible. Anyone and their granny can pick up a phone and make a video, and it is the great equalizer, right? You could be Tony Robbins with a full team following you around one of your events, or you could be a farmer in Nepal who manages to capture like one of your buffalo being attacked by a wild boar. I don't know, I'm absolutely talking rubbish here. But that farmer in Nepal can hit the upload button, and that could do 1 million views, right? Same as Tony Robbins could do that and get 7 views, or anywhere in between. The difference comes for brands and personal brand entrepreneurs, because everything that you put out on YouTube is a representation and it's a representation of your brand. You know, so if you're trying to say, you know, let's go back to financial services. If you're selling insurance or mortgages, you're basically saying, look, trust me with your money. Even if you're not directly going to do business with me, like even if I'm not going to be your broker, if I'm giving you some kind of mortgage information, shall we say, you need to trust me. But if I'm sitting in a badly lit room like this and I've got Saved by the Bell Funko Pops behind me, you're not necessarily going to listen. But if I'm smart and I've got a pressed shirt on and I'm cleanly shaven and I'm sitting in an office and I've got some nice certificates behind me that prove that I'm an authority, that helps. Same with the quality of your video and your editing and your music and your sound is, you know, he's asking me to invest in his $10,000 course, but he can't invest $50 in a decent microphone or someone to edit his videos. Yeah. So it's really about what's the word? Not expectation. It's perception. You know, it's all around perception. Do I look the part? Do I sound the part? Do I act the part? Because if you don't, there's instantly a disconnect. You know, it's like having a fitness coach that was obese.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to sell something luxury, but you're sitting in a badly lit, poorly furnished flat, it's just not going to work. It's like if you're teaching someone about how to run a podcast and you don't run a podcast yourself, it just doesn't work. So I think YouTube is a great equalizer and there is a low barrier to entry. But I think for the audience that are listening to this, this is an extension of your brand. And if you've got a really nice website and your Instagram's beautiful, but you've got this really ugly YouTube channel that's poorly lit, poorly shot, badly edited, lots of ums and ahs, you're not looking at the lens, like you're talking like, hi guys, I want to talk, and you're reading off a teleprompter. Like the difference between where I'm looking now and the difference between now I'm talking to you looking into the lens, psychologically, that is huge. That is huge. And I'm trying my best when you're talking to not look at you.
Yeah, well, I look at you because it's hard, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. This very weird sensation of me looking at an object and talking to it. It's strange, but that's just it's something you've got to do, because the difference between me talking to you down the lens and, because most people are watching YouTube like this, right? They might be sitting on the bus. And that's a really intimate experience. They almost look, we're having a conversation. It just so happens that they can't talk back. But the difference between me having a conversation down the lens like this and me saying, yeah, today we're going to talk about life insurance, the difference is huge from that psychological. And it's just knowing those little things that people might not know. And so, for example, you might have all the best intentions. You bring in a videographer, and the videographer comes in and he sits down 3 different cameras, because that's what he's used to doing in the corporate world. And I'm giving this interview and I'm like, yeah, we sell life insurance. And then all of a sudden he cuts to that other angle and it's like, and we believe life insurance is important for. Like that's a very corporate video kind of thing, that a videographer, that's going to be his instinct, because it adds value, because it shows you've got multiple cameras. But that doesn't work on YouTube. It's a very different visual language. So everything that you do on YouTube conveys something about your brand. And that goes for the lighting and the sound and the editing, but also the background. Are you in situ? If you're, so often I see a lot of people with green screen, and to me, that was a very kind of 2012 kind of thing to do. Because if I'm talking to a doctor, or, I'm learning about chronic back pain, I'm much happier to see a doctor sitting at his office with all the books behind him and the fake spine, ornament behind him or whatever, and his certificates, because that's an anchor to me to say, yeah, he's a real doctor. He might not be, but you'd hope those certificates.
I completely agree with you on that, because I think you're like, I bought all of the road gear, bought the Rodecaster Pros, bought everything like that, and I wanted, and my wife laughed because she said, well, what, you put it here, like you can see me messing about with it. She said, like, and if I do full screen, like the whole idea was that you can see that I have a podcast. So if my headphones are on and I'm talking into the mic and there's do I need that? No, not really, because a Blue Yeti mic performs everything that I needed to do.
Yeah.
Realistically, the moment someone jumps onto the channel or to see my video, they'll go, okay, this guy has the gear, knows what he's doing. And yeah, I think you're so right. Like it's so vital, like vital, I think, actually.
Yeah, because video is all about know, like, and trust. I think that it's in it. There's no hiding on video. You know, and yes, you should be authentic and all that good advice, which is good advice. But you can be yourself, but you can still be the best version of yourself, that version that's turned up to 11, right? So we all have moods and dips. And like if you've never been on camera before, and you know, there was a time where I hadn't been, and it's a very, very alien thing to do, especially like, you know, you got someone, you know, telling you to look into this lens. It can be very strange. And also, I can't quite explain it, but when, you know, you think you're doing, like, you're putting in an energetic performance, the camera is going to strip away a lot of that.
Yeah.
So often the best videos that I've ever shot is when I had someone on the other end saying, right, you need to pick it up again now. And like, you know, I'd wipe my face and I'd, you know, take the shine off my skin and I'd back up to 11, because the camera's going to strip away a lot of that enthusiasm and that energy. And so, yeah, you can be yourself and you can be authentic, but you need to remember you're putting on a show here. Like there's no doubt about it. It's like if you got up on a stage, you know, yeah, you can be yourself, but you know, you're there in an ideal world. You're going to put on a bit of a show at least. You might sprinkle jokes and that kind of stuff.
I went on a podcast called The Authority Project. It's a really good, great podcast in America. Like it was, and the guy said, because I have a big thing about authenticity, and I think that it's, as in, I'm quite not anti it, but I get very frustrated with the term. So you very rarely use the term, because I found that it's the hardest thing. If I said to you, Tom, be authentic. So this is what I find with people when they give advice, especially in the personal branding, digital marketing, kind of be yourself space. Everyone's like, just be authentic and it'll work. And then you go, okay, but what does that mean? And they go, well, just be true to yourself. And I'm like, okay, cool. So, okay, well, just be the best version of you that you are. Okay, but what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, what does it actually mean? Whereas what I did, and I do this with clients, and Alex, who's obviously a friend of both of ours, he always likes this about what I do. I say to my clients, go and find me 5 people that you, and as YouTube is normally the best place, go and find me 5 YouTubers or 5 people on LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever it may be, that you love their content outside of your industry. And then tell me what you like about them. And then let's see if we can put that into your message, because it needs to be, I knew straight away that my YouTube content, my very first mortgage content, is a YouTuber, called Alpha M, and Alpha Marino. And I don't really watch his content very much, but I watched it a lot when I was younger. And he starts the video straight up in like, boom, like right in the thing. And it's he's a fitness kind of guy and men's grooming. But the way he moved and spoke, I was like, that's really entertaining. It keeps my eyes watching. So I just transferred that to mortgages. What's that?
I think I know that channel actually. Yeah.
He's like guys called Aaron Marino.
Aaron Marino. Yeah.
Alpha M. But the channel, and I use it now as an example. It was years ago, and I did, but I remember that whether I was interested in what he was saying or not, there was something about the way he moved and was in the shot straight. It was just it was a style. And as you said, like, so he looked legit. Whether I liked him or disliked him, he looked legit. He looked like an authority in what he was talking about, because he wasn't just going, let me talk to you about what I think is really, he was like, boom, how are you doing? Da, da, da. And I thought, bloody hell. And when I had Nick on the show, I said to Nick, the reason I liked his stuff was because I like dark, moody lighting and and when his come on, I was like, oh, similar thing. I quite like that lighting. Whereas when someone else comes on, Daniel Patel, I'm not a big rocky guy. I don't really have so I'm like, okay, actually, that's not my kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it establishes the authority straight away. So I go, nah, it's not for me, or it is for me. And I think people don't put that enough thought into that.
Yeah. And I think that to me, that's what authenticity is not, not this airy fairy thing, but it's like, what do you stand for? So to me, anything that I've done, whether it's been on stage or whatever, is like, I'm proud of my kind of Cockney roots.
Yeah.
So I'm not well spoken. I'm not clean shaven. I'm a bit of a, rough geezer. So to me, that's my authenticity, is like, this is who I am. And that might work against me in some client meetings, because I'm not the clean shaven, shirt wearing kind of guy, but that's who I am. And if you're going to work with me, this is who you're going to work with, because I'm not going to have a shave every time we need to get on the phone. So to me, that's authenticity. It's like, it's attract the people that like you, because like you said, so you might not be a fan of Daniel, but you will be a fan of Nick. But then there'll be people that are a fan of Daniel and not a fan of Nick.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why there is room for more than, one person in a certain niche, because, I could learn how to, like you said, Aaron Marino, right? So
yeah,
I could learn from him, or I could learn from, Antonio and
I was going to say, Antonio, what's his surname?
He was
Real
my
name,
first
real
ever
style.
client, actually.
Was he? He's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
They're friends, aren't they? But such
they're business partners.
Completely different styles. That's a great example.
So like they're in the same niche, but yeah, you might learn from one, or you might just prefer the other one because the other one's, Antonio talks a lot about his military background, and if that's something that's important to you, then that's it. Or, there are younger guys, there are older guys, there are people that are more formal, more casual, people that are more like rugged and talk about like survival and outdoorsy stuff. So to me, that's what authenticity is. It's like, what's different about you?
That's such a great example of those two. I didn't know you'd worked with him. He's great. I used to watch a lot.
He's a complete legend. Yeah, he was on my podcast.
Was he? He's a legend. I watched his years ago. He was the one who taught me how to tuck a shirt in properly.
Yeah, I think that's his biggest. I think his biggest video is like how to tie a bow tie, but I think that's maybe like video number 2.
That's such an amazing example of two, because like you say, I really liked Alpha M because I was from a performing arts background, and I really loved how in your face he was. But then what I would find when you look at Aaron, then when you look at Antonio, obviously YouTube doing its thing, the two of them just kept coming up all the time. That was years ago. It was before I was really into this. Was like 2012, I think, 2015, 14, around that kind of time. But they're so different, but they're so uniquely awesome at what they do that you would go, okay, they're a great example. Anyone who's listened to this should check the two of them. I'll put links to them actually, because it make more sense to me.
Yeah, because if you the problem is often like I think even when I started my business, like, I'm going to help anyone that's got a YouTube channel, because that makes your job easier, because you've got this massive audience of 3 billion people. Yeah. When I really analyze and think about it, my ideal customer is this tiny little corner of the world that are people that own TVs and movie shows and stuff. Yeah, that's like movies and TV shows. And people are against that because it's like, oh, well, I'm cutting like, oh, I can't do men's fashion because I'm cutting off 50% of the world that are women. Well, it doesn't work like that. Yeah. And I forgot what point I'm trying to make, but
good point.
I've totally forgotten what point.
No, well, that's exactly the point. Do you know what it also does? It brings it full circle to the fact that what we were talking about off air about when I was interviewing people, a lot of them were blokes. And actually, that means something that I got feedback that there wasn't enough women on the show. But then the feedback was actually, when I look at my demographics, 92% of the people who watch or listen are men.
Yeah, yeah.
And actually, so you say that I hadn't thought about it. You've kind of made me rethink a few things.
Yeah, so what I was trying to say was, if you try to appeal to everyone, you do like a half-assed job for all of those separate niches, where if you just chose one and just be the best, the shining light for those people, you'll end up having much richer results. And it might be a smaller audience, but there'll be more kind of qualified leads or qualified customers, or those true fans, whatever you want to call it.
I love it. That's brilliant, Tom. So Tom, we've been chatting for nearly an hour, mate. If people want to connect with you, they want to work with you, they want to know more about what you do, we're wrapping this one up. Where is the best places for them to go? Obviously you've got multiple different things, so this is your chance to tell us about all the things you do.
Yeah, so probably the best way to get in touch would be to visit my website, which is channelfuel.co. That's .co, not .com or .co.uk. That's about to be actually revamped, so that'll be a lot more me in it, a lot more personal brand. So Ash will be proud of me for that. Yeah, that's where you can, like, if you wanted to work with me directly. I do have like an educational community, but probably at the time of this going out, I don't think it will exist anymore again, because I'm focusing down my time on more on what is going to move the needle for my business. So I probably won't bother talking much about that.
That's
but you can find probably if you're not quite ready to work with someone like me, but you're looking for some foundational stuff, check out my book. You can find it at optimizationebook.com. And that will just take you to your local Amazon store. Some of the screenshots are a bit out of date, you know, that YouTube changes very, very quickly. And I'm working on version 2 of that. You can see all the notes that I've made, all the updates.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, the foundational stuff in there, like how to title a video, how to write a description, talking about watch time, stuff like that. You know, I've had people tell me that the information in that book is better than, like, you know, $2,000 courses and stuff. So I would check that out if you're kind of on the beginning end of the spectrum.
Amazing, mate. We'll make sure we get the links for all of that stuff in it. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we'll definitely, I'm sure we'll be speaking more. That'd be great, Tom. Thank you so much, buddy.
It's been a pleasure, and sorry about the kids interrupt.
Oh, don't worry. That's good. It shows it's authentic, Tom.
That's authenticity, yeah.